Welcome to Astro Venture, the DSLR astrophotography channel. Hey there, Astroventures. Welcome back. If you're new to this astrophotography channel, my name is George, and this is the astrophotography channel for DSLR and mirrorless camera bodies combined with the lenses we already own and a simple star tracker like the Skygutter Pro or the Star Adventurer. Okay, here we are. New Moon weekend coming up, November 1st. And let's talk about a few things first. First thing I want to talk about, T. Coronae Borealis. Here we go. This was our nova that was supposed to go off during the summer. Well, I hope you weren't holding your breath for it. It's just never appeared. And so with that, I think T. Coronae really doesn't care what the Earthlings think. And so listening to people with some actual, knowledge, I mean real big brain astrophysicists and things, well, like most things in the cosmos, they don't care about Earthlings or the Earthling timeline, and the fact that, it has this schedule of when this nova goes off. Well, it doesn't care. So we're basically kind of on the watch. Hopefully, we'll catch it because, as you can see here, it's sitting pretty low, and this is at the start of dark. It's sitting pretty low in the western sky, meaning that pretty soon it's going to just disappear for us, and it's not going to be a target that we're going to be able to see if this thing finally detonates. So with that said, keep our fingers crossed that as we come into 2025, maybe T. Coronae Borealis will hold off, but as of yet, we've got nothing, and please hold off. I'd love to be able to capture this this nova going off. Next, let's jump over to let's see here. Up in our night sky, we have T Atlas. We've got the comet flying. And let's see, that's right here. Here we go, T Atlas. And this one here, well, I'm going to say it, and some may feel it's a bit controversial, but boy, I really felt like T Atlas was a bit of a letdown compared to all the hype that was out there. Now, was it a letdown? No. I had said it before in a previous video on this channel that I really, really believed all of this hype was way overblown, and it's like every time the supermoon happens, the news will blow this all out of proportion, and everybody's running out to see the supermoon, and realistically, you can't tell the difference from a regular moon. And I really felt that they blew this out of proportion. There were claims that this was going to be something incredible, like Neowise. And although, I did get some great pictures myself of the comet. Here's one of my close-ups, and I got the green, coma coming around on the front there. And, ZTF, well, yeah, it was much better than ZTF ever was. But, it just never showed up like everybody was hyping, and yeah, it did get to the point of being visible. Here's one of the images, with my grandson out there catching the comet, and then the two of us watching it, and of course it wasn't this obvious, as anybody that shoots astrophotography knows. We pull these things out, but it did achieve a point where you could under good skies you could see the comet out there, but it was nothing like Neowise. And so disappointing that the hype didn't come out to be true, but the fact is I think if you've been doing this long enough, you kind of had to look at all that hype and go, yeah, I think there's way too much hype around that, because realistically, having a comet come around that's as powerful as what Comet Neowise was, that's truly a rare exception. And as of the last number of years, probably since COVID, everything about space has really gotten overblown and overhyped, and I think the same thing happened here. So, yes, better than most. I got some amazing photos of this comet, but nothing like what all the hype was, and I know some people were disappointed, and typically we see something more in line with what ZTF did. So it is what it is. I hope you got some amazing pictures. Tell me in the comments below, what did you think? Was it a bit disappointing relative to the hype? I know in actuality I was not disappointed. I'm referring to the hype. Disappointing compared to the hype. But no, I was completely thrilled with what actually showed up. So let's get that out of the way and take a look at some targets coming up here. So first one I want to take a look at and talk to you about is the Andromeda galaxy. And Andromeda here, this is going to be our largest neighbor, and this is an outstanding target to go after. Now, for the Andromeda galaxy, you're going to want to be more along the lines of, let's see here, let me back that up. I personally like 400, and that's shooting on my full frame. However, if you are shooting on a crop sensor, let's see here, you're going to want to back this out because you're going to see 400 is a little bit too big. And I'm going to say that, about 200 is going to give you plenty of good wiggle room with this, as a minimum. 300 I find to be really sweet, and if you diagonally, frame it up, it fits in there beautifully. So Andromeda galaxy, you really want to get on this one. M31, great target. This is again, just like Pleiades, this is another one of those beautiful beginner targets, and under the right conditions with good clear dark skies, you can actually see the fuzzy spot of Andromeda up in the night sky. The next largest galaxy that we have in our neighborhood would be the Triangulum galaxy. And I want you to take a look at that one here. And with this one, you're going to want to jump this one up to 500. And again, that's off of a crop sensor. And so there you go. You've got a nice framing here. This one here, the more image time that you can get, the further out this galaxy will extend because it gets so faint on those, the ends of the arms. And so the center area, this meat and potato area, this shows up really well. Not too many hours of data, but the more hours you can get, the larger the Triangulum galaxy is going to get for you. And so these are both great targets that I would tell you to go after. Now let's jump over to Stellarium here, and so let's see here, minimize this, jump over here to Stellarium, and we'll do a quick show you for those that are new. Andromeda, here we go, let's jump over, let me zoom this out. Okay, so there is the Andromeda galaxy. And you will see I have this set to just after dark. Locally, that's going to be at 8 o'clock. Let me zoom this out a bit further. So you can see here's the east, here's the northeast. So it's more east-northeast. And you'll see it right there. Starting off right there at dark, we have some nice altitude out of that right off of the bat. So it's sitting, you figure the North Star for myself, sits at about 41 degrees. And here we are starting at about 55 degrees. So right off the bat, you're going to be out of the thicker part of the atmosphere into some beautiful shooting area from the get-go. And so Andromeda, again, great target, great beginner target. And then right below that, you have the Triangulum. And so zooming in on that, you can see that there. And again, looking at it, you've got this sitting at the about 41 degrees, 42 degrees. Up in the sky. So again, this is sitting in a beautiful spot out of the thickness of the atmosphere. So both of these are great to go after. Now, what I really want to talk about in this particular one, let's go over to the eastern sky here. And then what we're going to do is we're going after the Orion Nebula. Okay, Oriona. Let's try and do that. There we go. Now, obviously you could see it's not quite there, so we're going to have to move this a little bit later in the evening. Here we go. So I'm looking at locally. It just pops over the horizon at 11 o'clock. There it is, midnight. Now, this isn't exactly in the best of position to get started. It's at 20 degrees at at midnight for my own personal time. Don't forget, this coming weekend, some of you are affected by the fact that, at least here in the States, our clocks are going to be going back an hour. So that's going to give you some time for this to get a little bit higher up in the night sky. But anyway, starting out here, it's at the 20 degree point. Here you have the Orion Nebula. And the thing is that, you know, first light isn't coming until somewhere around 6 o'clock in the morning for myself locally, you know, just for where you are. But at about 20 degrees, I can start getting some imaging time on this, and it will allow me to shoot all the way until first light, give me a good 6 hours through the night when there's the least city lights as well. In, you know, again, I'm trying to get to darker skies, but you know, everybody's in bed by this hour of the night, and so the lighting itself goes down. But let's take a little bit of a closer look on the Orion Nebula. And I'm not pointing at the Orion Nebula. The Orion Nebula is down here. This is where we have the Horsehead and Flaming Star, or the Flame Nebula. But let's take a look over at Telescopius for a moment, and I want to show you something here. So we're going to go to the Orion Nebula. Okay, why do I keep spelling it Oriona? Orion. Okay, here we go. Now, let's jump in here. So, right off the bat, let's slide this back up. All right, here we are at 500 millimeters. Honestly, this is way too zoomed in my opinion. And the reason being is because with any amount of time, there's going to be a lot of good stuff that extends off of the Orion Nebula itself. So we're going to start backing this out. So shooting off of a crop sensor camera, let's jump this out to about 300. I tend to like 300 for the reason that I get the primary target area small enough, and with enough hours, I can pick up some of the additional dark cloud, you know, nebulosity that's around there. But this is a target that just keeps getting better. So let's back this out, because you can see we got the Horsehead peeking in over here. So let's back this out, and let's take this to 200. Okay. Now at 200, and with some careful framing, you could get both of these in here. However, I'm not particularly fond of the 200 because I feel it's just a little bit too tight of an image. So I prefer to jump this down to about a 100, and this allows me to fit it all in a bit better. I pick up some more nebulosity within there. And the other thing you may notice here is this is Bernard's loop that comes in around here. Now, you don't need to have an Astro modified camera, but it certainly helps. Now, let me show you where I'm going with this. So we're at 100 millimeters right now. Let's drop this down to a 50. Now, a lot of people will have a 50 millimeter 1.8, and that lens is going to allow you to really capture a lot of light in minimal exposure time, which also minimizes star trailing. But look at how you can start picking up Bernard's loop in here. You've got the Orion Nebula, you've got the Horsehead Nebula, but notice there's even more up here. And so one of the things I want to mention to you, and depending on if you have it, I actually have a 35 millimeter 1.4, which gives us even more light from Tamron. If you're not familiar with that light, with that lens, it's for DSLRs, and hands down it is Tamron's sharpest lens. And at 1.4, you're letting in lots of light. But here I'm looking at it with my 35 millimeter for a focal length, and look at all of this nebulosity that's in here. You got Bernard's loop, you've got the Orion, you've got the Flame and Horsehead nebulas. There's just all this good stuff that's in here. The other beauty is with our Sky Guider or Star Adventurers, with those shooting so wide gives you a lot of leeway in exposure time, accuracy as far as your polar alignment. It's just a whole lot more forgiving. And so this thing is an absolute monster. And I've seen images done, people that have went after this, and it's amazing. Now, the thing is, though, this steps into a bit of some more advanced imaging, and here's what I mean. To really do this justice, and let's zoom this back in here. I'm going to jump this back up to, let's say, 400 millimeters. Let's jump in here, and I'm going to slide this up. Okay. The Flame and Horsehead Nebula. This is that hydrogen alpha. It's darker. This is a bit brighter, but these are not real bright areas. But down here, when we get into the Orion Nebula and the Running Man over here, the Orion Nebula itself, the center area is immensely bright. So, as I said, this kind of falls into some more advanced imaging, and here's what I mean. Jumping this back out, let's take it to 50 millimeters. To really do this justice, and what you're going to want to do is shoot some extended, some long imaging to pick up Bernard's loop and all this hydrogen alpha that's in here, the hydrogen alpha that's in the Horsehead. The Flame Nebula is a whole lot more forgiving, but this is where you're going to need that longer exposure, and the longer exposure is going to work well in the surrounding areas of the Orion Nebula. But let me tell you, those longer exposures, the Orion Nebula blows out so easy because of how bright it is at its center. So, part of the night, you're really going to need to shoot those long exposures to really pull all this other stuff in, and then you're going to need to shoot part of your night with shorter imaging sessions to expose for, and let's jump this back up again, to expose for the center of the Orion Nebula. Because as I said, this is going to blow out in here. And so by shooting some shorter images, you can prevent this from blowing out. However, you're not going to pick up these other areas because of how short the exposure time is. And then ultimately, you're going to need to join everything together. And so with that, my recommendation, you shoot your, one set of images exposing for the darker stuff. And you're going to need your dark frames for that imaging settings, as well as your flats, your flat darks, and your biases. And then you're going to have to shoot the other set of images for the bright area of Orion. And again, you're going to have to add in some darks, some flat darks, and some biases. I would suggest editing one set for the darker area, edit the other image for the brighter area, and because nothing has changed between them, I would then overlay the two of them and mask them in, blend them in, so that you can get a more even exposure between the darker areas and the brighter areas. But right now, this is a great time to get this because, and it's only going to get better as we move into December, because depending on the lighting that's around you. I know for myself, I have to worry about lighting to the south and southwest. So I really need to capture it over to the east and get it between the east and overhead before it kind of messes it up. So you got to adjust for you. But ultimately, shoot wide on this and try your hand at doing those dual exposures and layering it together. Because, Orion and Bernard's Loop and all of that stuff is absolutely gorgeous and amazing. So there you have it. That's a quick down and dirty on it. In the comments, I would love to see, what are your thoughts on T-Atlas? Did it kind of disappoint relative to the hype? And how did you feel personally? Like I said, personally, I was thrilled with how the Comet turned out. But pertaining to hype, overblown. What's your thoughts on T-Coronae? Are you still holding out hope, or have you given up? And you know, we would also love to see any of the images you take for the this upcoming new moon in our Facebook group, Astroventure DSLR. So until next time, I wish you clear skies and uneventful nights, and of course, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring the bell. Till next time.